It felt like a big budget uncorked film. Anyway, I say that with love. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Spoiler Room. Thank you for coming down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and grabbing your favorite drink as we continue the Skin Flicks month here in the Spoiler Room, where we're looking at films with the word skin in them. And tonight we've got an interesting one. Should be a fun discussion. We went way back to 1931 to look at Alfred Hitchcock's The Skin Game. And with me tonight to look at this very interesting early work of Hitchcock's is Mr. Joe Randazzo. Yes, Joe is with us tonight. Mr. Ian Simmons, he's off celebrating his wedding anniversary with his wife. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Ian.
And how you doing, Joe?
I'm doing all right. I've been the last couple of weeks have been extremely busy. This is the first 2 consecutive days off I've had in a long time, and I went from like April 28th to May 14th without a day off. So my brain is just completely burned out. But I had nothing to do today, so I just sat home and I watched 5 movies today. So I'm really happy.
Wow.
I'm exhausted. I worked 13, 14 hours yesterday, mostly on my feet. So I did not want to get up for anything. So
that's a good way to spend the day to me. I've done those days.
When I can, I'll get up tomorrow. I'll do, tomorrow I'm off too. I'll go grocery shopping. I'll go do all that stuff tomorrow. But today I was just like, I am too tired to do anything today. So I'll just get everything done tomorrow.
Well, yeah, it sounds like an interesting day. See anything interesting?
A couple things. Well, I started out the day with a Paul Naschy movie because I had the collection in front of me. I threw it on. I watched Night of the Howling Beast, which is one of Paul Naschy's many werewolf movies. He was known as the Boris Karloff of Spain, and I think we've got somebody else joining us now. It was weird. I didn't want to watch anything that was going to I wanted garbage movies. And Paul's son Sergio, if you happen to be watching, I love your father's movies. I absolutely do. I'm not trashing his movies by any means. It's just I didn't want anything that was going to be incredibly intellectually stimulating. I wanted a movie where a werewolf was fighting a yeti. And then I watched a Bruno Mattei movie after that, and then I was like, oh wait, I got to do the Skin Game tonight. Let me throw that on. I went through the Skin Game on after that, and
you're still talking to me, so that's great.
I did message you, and not to spoil my thoughts on this, but wow.
And with us as well, joining us, she's with us, the horror retrospective. It is none other than Kara. Hello, Kara. How are you?
Hello, doing all right.
Great. Kara, meet Joe. Joe, meet Kara. There we go.
Hello.
This is first time I've had this pairing, so this is awesome. So what you been up to, Kara?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was last minute watching the movie, to be honest, and then I looked at the time. I'm like, oh no, I gotta move.
She lost track of time in a good or bad way. So yes, so glad you could join us, Kara, for another a voice on an interesting movie from 1931. Yes, you heard that right, folks. The Skin Game with Mr. Alfred Hitchcock. And Joe, would you be able to give the synopsis without falling asleep of The Skin Game?
I kind of found myself comparing it a little bit to Parasite, but not favorably in this case. What did I write? Because I wrote something here, and I'll do it like in a movie trailer thing. Let me pull it up real quick.
Sure.
But my comments on it, and this is from somebody who has made it a point this year to watch as many Hitchcock movies as I can, because there's a lot that I haven't seen of his.
Mine too.
The master of the thriller brings us his most thrilling subject yet. No one will be seated after the mid-film land auction. Can your nerves handle the gripping suspense of rich old codgers in drawing rooms discussing land deals? I You know? But yeah, I was just, man. One of my close friends who's gone through and seen all of Hitchcock's movies, we messaged each other during this, and he said, yeah, it took him a little while to become a master, which maybe isn't fair, because The Lodger was before this and he wasn't too far away from The Man Who Knew Too Much. Murder is really good. Blackmail is really good. But I just found myself just zoning out and zoning back in on this, because it's just long drawn out sequences of people talking in drawing rooms, and I was like, everything that everybody complains about pre-code movies, which I love mostly, but this is the kind of movie they're talking about when they're complaining about pre-code movies being, quote unquote, boring. Because this was just, I mean, it's about two feuding families, basically, the Hatfields and the McCoys. What's the name of the new?
There's Hornblowers and the
Hornblowers are the new rich family. And they're buying up all this land, and you know what? I don't think I can give a complete synopsis, because it's just like, even talking about it now, it finally does start to get interesting towards the end, when there's the big secret about Chloe, and I'm presuming, since spoilers in the title.
Oh, it's spoiler room. Oh, absolutely.
Since spoilers in the title, she basically goes the Ophelia route.
Yeah.
Oh darn, that got spoiled. I missed the last 8 minutes of the movie.
Oh no. Well, welcome to the spoiler room, Cara. And
we could. I guess we could have held off a few more minutes and waited for her to finish it.
Yeah, no.
I'm so sorry.
Well, that's what I get for last minute watching, and then I walk into the stream, and it's like I hear talk of Paul Naschy, and my ears perk up, and I'm like, oh, what did I miss?
I love Paul Naschy. I'm a huge fan of his, and actually 10, 15 years ago, right before he passed away, I actually tracked down his son, and his son and I are friends on Facebook, and I was trying to get him to come. I was trying to get Paul to be in a film that I was producing at the time, to just cameo in it. Mm-hmm. And he was too sick to do it. And I left off with Sergio with, hey, if he gets better, we'd love to have him. And didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I just love movies in general, horror mostly. So yeah, when you came in, we were talking about Paul Naschy, and then I watched a Bruno Mattei movie after that, because I was just like, I'm zonked out. I'm so tired from the last 3 weeks. I've worked 2 jobs, and I've had a lot of. I was telling Mark earlier, I was like, I've had a lot of 20-hour days. So I was just like, I just want to veg out in front of the TV and watch movies where I don't have to think too hard.
Unfortunately, it sounds like the skin game may have put him to sleep on that.
It didn't put me to sleep, but I found myself kind of catching myself going, up, get up, come on, wake up, you gotta be able to talk about this thing tonight. But
we didn't mean to spoil it for you, Cara, but go ahead.
No worries. I mean, I kind of found it, like, in the beginning, kind of hard to follow it. Like, what are you guys talking about? And then I'm like, okay, there's issue about the land. And then I'm thinking, is this kind of like this John Wayne movie about like the sycamore trees, or I'm making stuff up, but it's about, about the red, is it the redwood trees? And they're like, save the trees and don't knock them all down and yada yada. And then I'm like, no, it's something else. This isn't some Bambi thing.
Oh yeah, I think you are. Yeah, I'm not sure which John Wayne film that is. There's been but I get what you're saying about it playing off initially as Save the Land, but
yeah,
it's not like that. I mean, I think Saving the Land is the inadvertent positive from the fact they just don't want their view skewed by factory.
Yeah, which is why I was like, wow, man, this is Hitchcock, and the stakes could not be lower for this.
Yeah, I was like thinking like where's the noir? Like where's the mystery? I'm like it really doesn't get interesting until the end. Like, okay, you've got this streetwalker wife and she's pregnant, and the husband's like, I don't want anything to do with this woman. I wouldn't own any child by this woman. And I'm like, dude, you were boinking her.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I mean, I guess maybe because at the end of the day, she is a human being, and we do show that she does have human emotions because she does, you know, she commits suicide. By apparently, she leaves, and then it's said that that she was found in the river. And I don't know if they ever said specifically that she committed suicide, but that's what I took from it.
No, it's pretty well implied. I mean,
Yeah.
Even though we are talking pre-code, we are still talking British. So there are some things that they kind of imply but don't directly come out. And fishing her body out of and initially they said river, but it looked to me more like a reflecting pool in the backyard that they pulled her out of.
They didn't have a lot of money. So
No, well, she drowned herself fairly quick though. It's like, holy crap, she wasn't gone that long. I mean, but that's the end of the film. And why we're talking about it, folks, is that's the thing with this film. And now here's the thing: it was based off of a stage play, and from the 20s, and we're talking 1931. It's literally deemed in the opening as a talkie. So we're talking about this weird time in cinema to where they're transitioning to more more sound movies, and they're still trying to find their footing. And I think that's what you're seeing here with the Skin Game, especially because as far as the camera work goes, it's Hitchcock. There's camera, even with the slow all in one room action, you get camera movement in here that you don't see in a lot of older films.
Yeah, and it's also Hitchcock finding his footing, because
right.
This was 2 years before the man, or 3 years before The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Right. Yeah, so 3 years, and he came out with Murder the same year, but still, he's still finding his way, I think. He's trying out some things. Like I said, there's a couple of shots in the Skin Game that are definitely Hitchcock, to where the camera is moving through a crowd. It's kind of moving along a room, and this may sound like it's something small, but for a 31 film with a big, huge film camera, for them doing what they're doing even then, was impressive, I think.
It definitely was. There was another. What was it? Was it Room 13 or something like that? It was another Hitchcock movie around the same time that I had watched recently. Like I said, the reason I did this podcast is because I had started this year to go through. I wanted to watch every Hitchcock movie that I haven't seen yet, and there was one that stood out to me because it was about a bunch of criminals getting together after a botched heist in one room, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like Tarantino saw this and decided, hey, I could take an old Hitchcock movie, but it played like an old dark house movie, which was really weird. So it's so like, look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not too thrilled with this movie, but it's kind of interesting to watch Hitchcock start to kind of like you guys were saying, like experiment a little bit and start to kind of figure out things that 3 years from now he's going to use in The Man Who Knew Too Much. After that, he's going to use it in The Lady Vanishes, and he's just going to get better and better.
So, we talked about The Lady Vanishes a couple months ago. That film was it was like, wow, this is a good film. How are more people don't talk about this one?
Yeah.
And Cara, for this one, I mean, were you completely bored? Did you find some interesting bits here and see some things like early Hitchcock like style in this?
I didn't really pick up on that. I mean, it's and not just that, but it's been a while since I've seen a Hitchcock movie. I think
Sure.
I think the last one I rewatched was Psycho, so it's kind of hard for me
Oh,
to compare the two.
that's, though this could have used a murder, not a suicide, but they could have used a murder like halfway through.
Well, not just that, but it's pre-code, so I'm kind of thinking like, where's the wild girls and there's no skimpy clothes, and where's the boobies?
Well, I mean, they were a little skimpy, but not like it wouldn't be like what you'd see like on Claudette Colbert in Side of the Cross or anything like that. It'd be
Oh yeah, she was hot.
she was. But also, do British films count really as pre-code? Because I don't think they had the Hays Code over there, did they? I don't think they had a production code.
No,
like that.
they didn't.
I think it went by like a different set of rules, but
Yeah.
I think they held on to it about as long as we did too, because I don't think they were allowed to do nudity at all over there. Because otherwise, Hammer Films would have been like ripping dresses off women in like 1959.
They would have been like Italian. They would have Hammer horror would have been Italian horror type film, only British. Where bodices were being ripped by nothing at some point. They just suddenly, oh, that shirt got ripped. I don't know how, but oh well. But in this one, you're right. Well, again, I think there's a number of factors of why this film feels reserved. One, British in the 30s, their culture in general is seen as being, especially back then, a bit more, for lack of a better term, stuffy. I'm not saying it was for everything, but for a lot of entertainment, those who controlled it, conservative, stuffy. I mean, yeah, you still had your wild films, but a number of the British films you got, are like that. Plus, it's based off of the stage play, which I imagine wasn't exactly a wild stage play from 10 years prior. So things a lot changed from 21 to 31.
And there was apparently another film version in 21 too that was silent.
Right. And in fact, two of the performers in this, who's playing Ivy Hillcrest, and Mr. Hornblower, Edmund Gwen and Helen
Hay, yeah,
were in the original silent one. So I think a number of factors play into that. You have silent actors trying to do talkies.
Mm-hmm.
You have a stage play that they're trying to adapt to a cinematic version, and you've got an early Hitchcock. I mean, there's a lot of factors that take into effect of why I think this film doesn't come off as well as you might expect it to.
Well, like Cara said when she jumped on, where's the noir? Where's the suspense? There really wasn't anything to like grab me and make me. I was like, okay, so it's two old people arguing about a land deal.
That auction scene got pretty intense, though.
It does.
I disagree with that. I mean, it's kind of like they really could have picked it up, like even used like music to like really draw people in, but maybe that wasn't a thing yet at the time. But
it definitely wasn't, because because even if you watch like Frankenstein or Dracula, The Public Enemy, Little Caesar, there really weren't a lot of like music cues in these movies at the time.
Yeah.
That seems like something that came out a little later, like in like the late 30s.
Well, that's because you had to have an orchestra on the stage off to the side playing while they're recording.
It wasn't until later when they finally started figuring a lot of this stuff out. That
right.
But I mean, early 30s movies always have a tendency to feel really primitive because of the lack of technology, and like you said, they're still playing around with things. They're still trying to figure it out. But not to say that in itself would make the movie less interesting, because like the movies I mentioned, if you watch Little Caesar, The Public Enemy, Frankenstein, those movies still hold up. They still work. This just felt really kind of dull. Even with Hitchcock doing what he can, it felt like, I think when you can't, like, I couldn't get invested in it because I was like, and honestly, how many people can? Like, this is a movie that's aimed at the rich versus new wealth versus old wealth. Like,
Yeah, nouveau
who are,
riche.
yeah, who are we supposed to be rooting for here? Like, who's the common, middle class person supposed to be identifying with? And
Yeah, it's kind of like you're sitting there with your popcorn and melting whoppers, picking your nose, and it's kind of like, yeah, I like that hooker character.
well, I guess, yeah, I guess she is the one that comes off the most human because she's the only one that actually comes off like a person. And maybe it's progressive
I
for the
can't help it.
time.
I liked Mark's reaction.
Yeah, Mark literally did a spit take.
The hooker person. You're right. I mean, that was Chloe. I mean, it's again, I think it's also just a product of its time and the culture of when it was made.
Definitely.
While we in 2023 may not exactly find this 90-year-old film that interesting, 92. This may have been interesting, especially for those who would end up seeing this, because you're
Yeah.
talking early movie theaters. So, who is going to, and we're talking early 30s, we're talking 31. So this is probably out in the theaters at 31. So who's actually going to the theaters? Is it people who are more well off who would then find this subject really interesting? Or or is it the masses who are finding the lifestyle of the rich and famous, so to speak, interesting?
I mean, they could have been potentially controversial topics at the time, for all we know.
Yeah, well, especially the idea of Chloe. I mean, Chloe was already controversial in the movie, but it was like, and it was all about prestige too, and their name and people's word and their faith, taking their vow on the Bible. At one point, the Hillcrests, when they find Chloe's dirty secret, they hold it against Mr. Hornblower, who had done a runaround at the auction to buy this land that the Hillcrests wanted.
Yeah.
And so they blackmail him into signing the land back over to him, but they take a vow on the Bible that they would not speak a word of it.
But by then, it's already too late.
Yeah.
Because it's already
signed it.
The game of telephone has already started, so you're not really going to be able to stop it. The toothpaste is out,
Yeah. Oh, I like that the toothpaste is out.
Oh yeah, you can't put it back in. Yeah, I mean that's. I guess from that aspect of maybe the people who watch and lionize the Kardashians, maybe those people of their time, like that are middle class, who but I'm looking right now on Rotten Tomatoes. The film has a score of 38%, and I'm going to see how many of those were contemporary reviews.
Sure. Well, it's got 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb too. So there you go. Oh. So very middle for IMDb, which is tough considering whose name is attached to it. But it's proof that, I mean, this is like Alfred Hitchcock's Hook. No, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad movie. It's slow. I wouldn't say it drags, but I mean, it's slow. I mean, you've definitely got a story. It moves. It's just kind of like you want to whack it with a whip. It's kind of like move.
well, they do. Oh, they do tread. Yep, she dropped for just a second, but she's back. They do kind of retread some ground in here, and then there's other parts to where they come back and you find out something happened off screen, but we never got to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe, I would have liked them seeing Shakedown. Was it the who's the lawyer guy, the kind of shady guy?
Was it Docker?
Docker. Yeah, I would have liked to see I would have liked to see the shakedown of Docker by Chloe's husband to get him to confess. I'm like, that sounds like something Hitchcock could have done. Like,
yeah.
Even during this time period, there was a movie called Madam X, which There's multiple versions of it, right. But I remember the Lionel Barrymore version of Madam X, also deals with the subject of, you know, prostitution and all this stuff, but Barrymore did it in a way that made the film itself so much more interesting. And you got a fantastic Norma Shearer performance that, you know, she's just phenomenal in it. Was it Norma Shearer? Or am I getting her confused with someone else? Because now I'm confusing myself. But also, these reviews that I looked up, they're all post 2000. So all the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, none of them are contemporary. So there doesn't seem to be any record for how well the film did. Oh, it was Ruth Chatterton in Madam X. It was Ruth Chatterton giving a tremendous, heartbreaking performance. So I was kind of maybe mentally comparing it to that a little bit, because that deals with, you know, a woman who turns to prostitution after her very well-to-do husband kicks her out and all this stuff. And I felt like it was handled in a much more interesting way in that. And that was 1929. So I don't know. I tend to like pre-code movies. This one just left me really cold, though. This one just kind of left me with like just like something needs to happen, and we need to see something on screen. It's Kevin Smith joked that if he ever did an action scene, it'd be somebody leaves screen to go beat somebody up, then comes back and talks about it, and that's what this movie felt like.
I mean, I will admit the beginning scene. I can't remember the character's name. The riding pants in the beginning, they felt like they were wearing that girl. Like, they poke out weird in the back, they sag. It's kind of like, what's going on with your pants?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a bit odd with her pants, and there's just some interesting, quirky relationships in here. Like, we get the husband, Mr. Hillcrest, who has his wife Chloe, who we come to find out, like I said, spoiler, that she was a woman who, I loved how they put this. She was a woman who was hired by men to so they could get a divorce. Yeah. I'm like, wait, that was their motivation, was to, and then I'm like, oh,
okay. If I get caught cheating, they're gonna have to give me that divorce, honey.
Yeah,
5 weeks in Reno for you.
Of the night.
Yes, she was a true lady of the night, but just the way they're supposed to be proper British, you know, rich folk, upper class, and they're trying to describe her by not saying prostitute. It was just, I found entertainment in that. And
I wonder if that was also a word that maybe was forbidden. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I mean, it was probably improper to say she was a lady who shared her pocket.
A lady who shared her pocket.
Oh, wow. That sounds worse. I mean, that's like, wow. But just the way they put it, you know, for her is, oh, she was hired by men so that they could get a divorce. and then, you know, what I did like about it, I did like the Chloe character. You're right, Cara. As far as the characters go, she was the most interesting because of where this character came from to where she's at. There's this wonderful scene with Chloe being confronted by Docker. And it's actually, this is very Hitchcockian, to where she goes in the back garden where Docker is, and they're having a discussion. Yeah. And, you know, I really liked this scene, in all honesty. Maybe because it was of Chloe, because she lets her true self show in here, that she takes no shit.
Yeah.
Well, she takes no, but then at the end, she does.
Yeah,
she does end her own life over this, and you know that's the one thing that I took away from this, is that for the time to make us feel sorry, for a sex worker in 1931 is very progressive, because back then, man,
especially in Britain, in the upper class,
in 1931,
it was,
so more power to him for that, because that's you know, it's something that we should completely destigmatize. Um, but you know, I just thought of it here. Have you seen The Naked Kiss? Samuel Fuller, the Samuel Fuller movie from the '60s.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
kind of reminded me of that. You have a woman who starts out as a prostitute and she's starting to make her way up. Only in that movie, you have the police captain who's kind of at first kind of black. I think trying to send her to the cat house. He's trying to no, you don't want to do this. You want to go. It kind of reminded me of that. Like maybe Samuel Fuller had seen this and thought, hey, I can bring this up to date for 1963, 64, whenever that movie came out. And I might be kind of missing it a little bit here because it's been a little while since I've seen The Naked Kiss, but it kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, the Chloe character, I guess that would be the one. Answering my own question from earlier, if there's somebody that we should, make that like us, commoners could relate to, it would probably be the young woman who did actually do what conservatives are always saying: pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go make something of yourself. Don't use the fact that you were poor as an excuse. And they may not like how she did it, but
we're talking high society and the whole thing of image and reputation that is being addressed in here as well. Of whether or not that has merit, or if and maybe that's doing it in a very dry way and very maybe more subtle than you want. Maybe they're trying to get at showing the ridiculousness maybe of the rich.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it is kind of ridiculous. What like I think as an audience, like I felt they're going the stakes here up until you find out about Chloe's secret.
Right.
Mhm.
They're not really like, okay, you're fighting over an obstructed view, ultimately. And it just sounds like, you really don't have any real problems if that's the biggest problem you have.
Well,
Yeah.
even nowadays, like even like WASP culture, I guess you could say, they still get all um, bent out of shape over just what we consider minor things, but it's kind of like, oh, my reputation, I'm ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you got enough money, your reputation's going to be just fine. You don't have to worry about it,
Look at the Kardashians. We'll say that, right? Paris Hilton. So many of those.
It's like the whole discussion about cancel culture. People going on TV saying that they're being silenced. It's come on.
So maybe that's what they were going for here, was a statement about kind of this ridiculous, how petty the rich folks are. And I like the performances in here, folks. Who's playing Mr. Hornblower? Probably the biggest a-hole in the entire movie. It's the guy who played Santa in 34.
Miracle on 34th Street, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one.
Edmund Gwynn is played just a total dick in this movie. But the Hillcrests aren't really great either, though. Mrs. Hillcrest, played by Helen Hay, is far more like cutthroat than her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband's like,
she's the first one that gets out to go find out what the secret is. It's implied. It's implied that she's the one who's a badass, because she's like, I don't know if you want to know this. You might not want to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her character because, she definitely wears the pants in the family. How do you feel about
Yeah, very conniving.
Very conniving. What'd you think of Hillcrest, Mrs. Hillcrest, Cara?
Jesus, I mean, she just seems like you have to approach her in a certain manner. It's like she's not the sort of person you just walk up to and you just start a conversation. It's like it's kind of like you have to like walk up a certain way. It's kind of like you have to what do you say, approach with respect, but not just that. It's kind of like you have to be very careful. It's like walking up to a female spider.
Yeah, like one of those people who takes her position very, very seriously. Like our generations will be like, You'll be like, no, I'm Joe. Mr. Randazzo was my father. Whereas this is the kind of woman who'll be like, no, you are to address me as Mrs. Hillcrest
Yeah.
because that's
I
my
mean,
title.
she's like the Marlon Brando in this film.
Well, there's a lot of scenery chewing in this. There's a lot of over the top performances in this too. So it's pretty interesting to see that. On that note, it does. Yeah, that was the thing that was entertaining most about it.
Well, that's what got me with this is Morpho, because once I realized what the story was, I'm like, okay, but I'm digging that, especially like I said, if you put yourself in the mindset of 31 talkies are just coming on, you've got these folks who are used to just pantomiming. So now they have to pantomime and speak. It's I think it's most evident with the Chloe performance. She puts on the most like silent picture actress performance, I think, out of all these folks in here with just her facial expressions and that. It's just like, man, I mean, she's selling. She doesn't say a lot, but she's just like, but yeah, Mrs. Hillcrest, she just chews up every scene. She's like there. If you want to talk about screen presence, Helen Hay as Miss Hillcrest, that her character, she walks in the room. That's her. It doesn't matter who else is in the room.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's because of her performance or if it's because of the way her character was written. that's where I'm like, because you like Kara said, you just get this feeling, this stuffiness from her more so than anybody else. And she kind of came off like Margaret Dumont a couple of times too.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's definitely different than the younger folks in here, especially young Jill Hillcrest, her daughter. It really felt like they were trying to go for the contemporary youth versus the old as well, because you had the son and Jill who had a friendship, but the son of Hornblower also was married to Chloe. It was a weird relationship with that.
But you still, you also still see to this day where the really upper classes end up in very strange mixed up relationships that you're like, how the hell did that happen?
Well, because the way this starts off, especially in the beginning, you almost think like this story is going to go to where Jill and who is it, the Rolf Hornblower or whatever, were actually going to maybe become an item. Like that was the thing. Like you had the families warring, kind of a Romeo and Juliet thing where you had the families warring over land, and yet you had these two who would be romantically involved, but they're not. They're just friends. And I just thought that was an interesting dynamic for what the story was, because I thought for sure it was going to be, these two have a thing for each other, and they've got to deal with the fact that their families fighting over this piece of land.
So I just looked up Chloe, who was played by Phyllis Constam, and I'm just reading a little bit of her bio. She was apparently close friends with both Charlie Chaplin and Laurence Olivier.
Oh wow!
So if there's ever an actress, amazingly only in 12 movies. If there's ever an actress who is like learning like through people who are on both sides. Olivier, great stage actor, and then you got Chaplin, great visual pantomime actor.
That explains it.
That explains why she was so good in this movie, why she is so excellent in this movie, and why a lot of us maybe connected with her more than anybody else. Because it seems like she kind of figured out the best of both worlds by who she was hanging out with. But yeah, over the course of nearly 40 years, she was only in 12 films, so she must have been predominantly on the stage. There's not that much on her here, so I don't know.
But she does put in the best performance in this film, I think, as far as
probably,
or at least the way her character is the one that you feel, like you said, the most sympathetic, because the rest of these rich folk, you don't really care.
I mean, they're dehumanizing her, and I think that's how, now that I think about it, that's probably the person we were meant to actually, because the movie does kind of reach that tragic tone when she ends her life.
Well, and when she ends her life, it like is suddenly a reality check on all these folks too. They're just like, oh.
And it's like that sometimes. Sometimes when you see some of these people talking, they it doesn't hit them until something goes horribly wrong and somebody gets hurt or killed or whatever. Hate to bring this asshole up, but that what was his name, Brock Turner kid?
Yeah.
Like when you listen to the way his father spoke about him. And, I don't see why my kid's life should be ruined over 20 seconds of action. It's like, dude, that 20 seconds of action ruins somebody's life.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it takes less than 20 seconds to completely ruin somebody's life. So, and sometimes, unfortunately, people who are of means like that don't understand that the things they do could impact somebody to that level. And could completely destroy somebody's life, could drive somebody to suicide, could get somebody killed.
And looking at these characters makes me wonder Mrs. Hillcrest's background, in all honesty, because I wonder if she married maybe into money. That
maybe.
What would you say, Cara, with Mrs. Hillcrest? Did she maybe marry into money? With the way just the way her presence is, because she seems far more protective of things than her husband, who seems like, Mr. Commandant Lassant.
I mean, it kind of seems that way. Like that's what she came from. She probably went to like a very good, had a very good education, went to a finishing school, like had all of that routine.
Right, but not necessarily. Her family may not have been that rich, but then you have Mr. Hillcrest, and she married into better money.
Possibly, like maybe even just because of what she has, she thinks more highly of herself. Because I think even once in the film, someone referred to her as stuck up.
Yeah,
well, she definitely is. She definitely is stuck up.
But really, Mr. Hillcrest is a non-factor in this most times. Though his daughter, she's definitely daddy's girl in this. Jill is, but at the same time, it's like it mostly is between these characters and Docker. Man, I'm thinking, I'm like, what if this was made in the U.S.? This would have been some sleazy noir film. I think that's, Cara, where you would get your noir from if this would have been made in the U.S. Like Docker would have been like that guy in the shadows, where you only have the light on his eyes.
Oh,
like
I love that. I forget what that lighting's called, but it's so classic.
Where he's got the trench coat and the hat, and he'd be like in the garden scene where we could fully see him talking to Chloe in like I think in a Western version, he would be like in the shadow to where you could barely know it's Docker, but
the character I like, which really didn't get much attention, and I think he was probably I think he was more human also, was Dodo.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember him.
Let's see, which guy was that? I forgot his.
I forget if he was like one of the, like part of the staff, or was he like one of the family members? Like we don't see him too much.
No, in fact, he's not credited. But I'm wondering. I know who you're talking about, though.
I'm drawing a blank here. Who? What does he do in the film?
Yeah, because I mean, I know he's in that opening scene where, like, he's usually around when the family's together.
Okay. So it's probably one of the guys here that's credited as. As the Jackmans. There's two people credited as the.
The Jackmans were the old folks that were kicked out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This movie opens with Mr. Hornblower kicking out the Jackmans because the Jackmans lived on land. Here, gives you an idea of the film we're dealing with, folks. The Jackmans lived on land that were owned by the Hillcrests that was bought out by Hornblower. Hornblower said, "Oh, I won't touch the residents who live on the land currently." And the film opens with Hornblower kicking the people off the land because, as they put it, he wants to build more chimneys, aka he wants to put a factory up.
Oh.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm not quite sure which character were you referring maybe to Docker? Are
No,
you thinking Docker?
I can't remember the daughter's name, but she refers to him as Dodo, and I can't remember if it
Oh,
was like a housekeeper or if he was just like a staff member or if he was actually, because we see him so little. I think he was like a family, darn it.
he may not even been credited. So
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, maybe it's somebody who they didn't even give a screen credit to.
it was some
Yeah.
stagehand. But no, I know the character you're talking about. He doesn't show up often, but when he does, yeah, he's a servant too. So you know he's probably made to be a little more human on purpose,
Yeah.
versus the rest of these characters.
Like I remember him more like he was in that end scene that like after the wife had been unmasked for being a streetwalker
Mhm.
and they're
Oh, okay, yep. Hmm. I know what you're talking about. I don't think he's actually referred to in here in the credits at all. But I know what the
yeah.
character.
No, I'm looking at the credits now, and he's not even credited. So I mean, wow. I mean, are there any records? Like, who do we know who he is? You
Who
know?
is this guy? But he put out a good performance. You know, the butler guy, yeah, because he opens the door.
Yeah.
That I know who you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, it's what's interesting too is the sheer volume of characters you have in this movie. It was a little hard to keep straight at some points because I'm like, wait, which family member is this now? Because it's all in black and white that and everybody dresses similar too. So there's nothing really to distinguish these folks. And it's
Okay.
1931, so you're not exactly talking about the most diverse cast.
You're
1931
you're you're
Britain.
bordering on bigotry now. Like you're like everybody's black and white. They all look the same. You're gonna tell me I look the same because I'm black and white too.
No, I am not. I'm just it's my observation, okay? I'm not saying anything otherwise. I'm just
You
saying
just
that
sound like black and white people.
yes, I am against black and white people on film, I guess. No, I'm just saying that it was a bit tough at times with the characters' name because they drop names left and right, but at the same time, it's like, wait, which okay, is that the son of this person or this person? It was mostly the young men. You're trying to figure out who belonged to who because they don't make a lot of screen time. There's a lot of Mrs. Hillcrest and Docker and
Yeah.
Mr. Hornblower, but the other characters like pop in and out. You're like, wait, which kid is that?
No, I get what you're saying. I was just being silly.
I know, no, I know. Now I'm going to get canceled. Thanks, Kara. Now I'm going to
You're going to get canceled by an avatar.
But yeah, this film is just Hollywood's still figuring itself out 90 years ago. Okay, that's
Definitely.
that's one of the things that while they aren't necessarily the most entertaining to watch, it is interesting to see them trying to feel out how to work with this medium, especially when you're talking about talkies. You get, like you said, a lot of dead air in these movies because there's no soundtrack and there's someone just walking across the room. And so you get these kind of dead air moments, which if you don't have the most exciting story, which the Skin Game doesn't have.
Yeah. People refer to them as creaky, and I guess that would be why, because you will hear every footstep across that soundstage. You know.
It reminds me of Sound of Music.
Oh gosh.
But
I've never seen it, but I randomly thought of that TV show Charmed. It's like everyone wears heels. You always hear them when they change rooms. Click, 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 click.
I never watched it either. Could you actually hear their heels when they were walking?
You can a lot of times, yeah. Depending on
Wood floor and everybody wears heels.
yeah. It depends on the scene, but you can hear them quite a bit.
I saw a really interesting cheat a couple of months back. I was watching. It was some Edgar Ulmer film from the 40s or 50s. It was one of the Poverty Row movies. I don't know if he did for like Allied Artists or PRC or something, but I saw a really funny cheat because the guy sneaking into I think it was Murder Is My Beat, a noir film from like 1950. Guy's going into a hotel, and he's looking for somebody. So he sneaks up the stairs, and their way around the fact that he's literally running up the stairs while the not security, the front desk guy is right there, but doesn't see him. Is they just cut the sound. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't work like that in real life. You can't just. It's like you can't just cut this down in real. You'd hear him running up those stairs,
especially that during that time period. He's got hard sole shoes on, and that's wood steps. There's no way you're going to be stealth like ninja on it.
But that's the opposite end of this. We're here. We hear everything. Everything is mic'd, and we hear every footstep across that floor. You can't do anything. It's the cheat in the Charlie Chan movies, because in the Charlie Chan movies they just cut out the sound and that's it. They just would not use the sound that they recorded for that.
I remembered that in other films as well. They do that. They just cut the sound when someone's trying to be sneaky. Like you get the guy in the shadow in those noir films. It'd be like just no sound, and you're just like, wow, he's really silent.
They would make sound in real life.
So the Skin Game. Early
so
Hitchcock.
What exactly is a Skin Game, though?
That is taken.
I got an idea based on the dialogue, but I'm not entirely.
It all depends on it. What's interesting is looking at this versus Skin Game with James Gardner and Louis Gossett Jr. from the Western. They mean two different things in a little bit. In the Skin Game in the Western, it meant basically slavery. You're trading skin.
Okay.
In here, the title, according to trivia, the title comes from a slang phrase for an unscrupulous business operation. Although it is a British movie, the term was considered American and dates back to just after the Civil War. But it's not to be confused with a similar sounding monetary phrase that is to have skin in the game, which refers to someone who's invested in the business deal or wager. But yeah, apparently it's just a reference to an unscrupulous business operation.
Yeah, I just understood it as like they're just being sneaky. They're just tricking each other.
Yeah, why it's specifically called Skin Game, maybe it is because it's from the U.S. and just after the Civil War, it did more refer to slavery as an unscrupulous business operation, unscrupulous business of selling slaves, which is very fitting. And so that carries over here, but in a far less.
Well, I guess if you're buying land and kicking people off of it, then it's kind of, that is extremely unscrupulous. And I guess you are kind of, I don't know, maybe a reference to the pound of flesh, because you're just kind of.
It could be.
Named after the whore.
That's the Skin Game. She was playing
the Skin Game. Now I get it.
There you go. She's played the Skin Game. The unfortunate Chloe character who
climb them peaks.
Climb them peaks. Wow, wow. Okay, that took a turn.
And it was the girl that said it.
And it was the girl that said it.
I didn't hear what it was.
She said, "Climb those peaks."
Clap them cheeks.
Clap them cheeks, even more. I'm glad you said it, Cara, because there you go. So Joe and I are saying,
yeah, we're innocent.
I can't be sexist because I'm female. Oh, that word.
Well, they were definitely sexist in 1930 because the husband loses his entire shit when he finds out about his wife. It's like, this guy's like, I can't have a kid with this girl. I'm going to get, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, what the hell, man?
Yeah.
He flipped really quick.
Which is really unfortunate, because no one should have to go through that for their history. It's
well, it was a little confusing for me because earlier in the film, when the Hillcrests were sending letters to Hornblower saying, "Hey, we have something secret to tell you about your utmost importance involving your daughter-in-law," at first the way the son and Hornblower's son and Chloe were acting as if the son knew what this secret was and he was hiding Chloe. That one scene in the dinner, it was almost like they were playing it like he knew the secret, but he's trying to protect Chloe. And I'm like, are they playing it that he knows this secret and he loves her anyway? Which would have been, I think, a little more interesting. But no. He's pissed. He comes in after beating the shit out of Docker off screen, unfortunately. And he's like, where is she? No, I know her dirty secret. I'm like, dude.
I mean, it would have been even worse, I think, had he known and he just abandons her now because now everybody knows. So now I can't be associated with you because now that makes him, also a backstabber.
But it would have made it, I think, far more interesting.
It would have made it far more interesting. Yeah. If it's, hey, honey, listen, it was fine when nobody knew, but now that everybody knows, I can't be seen with you.
Again, maybe that would be.
You know how it goes. They smile in your face all the time. They want to take your place.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I mean, and but again, that throws back to my Western sensibilities. I could see them taking that angle if this was made in Hollywood versus in Britain, to where, they knew, and then he totally cuts her off because now everybody knows. He's like, nope, sorry. I can't now. I mean, it was okay when it was all a secret, but now that everybody knows, I got to kick you to the curb. Sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, that also kind of adds to the title, the skin game. I mean, it's about the land, but then they also play the girl as a bargaining chip.
Yeah, I mean, she ends up becoming this unwilling pawn by both. Her secret ends up getting used by both sides, and I mean, it's not the most action packed. It does get interesting in the last.
It was 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
15, 20 minutes when they start getting into the secret part. It just takes a long time to get there. And so if you're expecting some more classic, like Hitchcock suspense, noir type stuff, I think you're going to be a bit disappointed. Kara, what's your final thought with Skin Game?
I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's just like if you like Hitchcock, it's worth watching just to say you've added it to your belt of films. But yeah, you have to hang on just to wait until it gets interesting, which is what I did, and I'm like, for me, it was just worth the wait.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Joe?
It's something that maybe if I revisit it down the line, keeping in mind a lot of the things that I kind of talked through with you today, with the two of you guys, maybe it's something I'll enjoy more, and maybe watch it more from the perspective of Chloe. Maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more on that end. Overall, I, like Kara said, if you're one of those people who like I'm doing right now, I want to go through all the Hitchcock movies. I want to watch his growth, even though I'm not watching them sequentially. So it's worth it. It's worth it to watch it. Like she said, just to say you've seen every Hitchcock, you've seen where he's coming from. Not every one of them is going to be a masterpiece. Not every one is going to be North by Northwest or Psycho or Dial M for Murder. But you do see early inklings of what he would become later.
Mm-hmm.
And we mentioned it earlier when we looked at The Vanishing, the girl vanishes, or The Vanishing Girl.
The Lady Vanishes.
The Lady Vanishes, thank you. The Lady Vanishes, when we look at that, which was just a few years later, you can see the improvement won by Hitchcock in his storytelling. But also, I think it has to do with the script. While Hitchcock is credited with writing this, makes me wonder if he's credited that because some of the changes he may have made while they're shooting it, because it's actually John Glassworthy, I think, who wrote. In fact, when this film opens, it's a John Glassworthy film. Oh yeah, it's directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, he wasn't a huge deal yet, so yeah.
Well, definitely Glassworthy, because it can shatter quite easily.
And actually, I think speaking of Lady Vanishes, so oh my god, I've been working on this long piece on one of the Sherlock Holmes movies, and he apparently Hitchcock was not the first choice for the Lady Vanishes. It was supposed to be somebody else, and I can't right now think of who it was, but it was another. Oh, somebody who was making movies at Columbia Pictures, I think. Damn it!
I know who you're talking
I
about.
cannot. Oh, did I lose? Did we lose Mark?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. But yeah, he wasn't even supposed to be the first choice of the Lady Vanishes. So that gives you an idea that Hitchcock was not like the huge superstar, megastar director at this point. He was a jobbing director. It was a few years before he would become, the legend. Because even his only Academy Award winner for Best Picture, he never won for Best Director. David O. Selznick, took home the Oscar for Rebecca.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see where he came from and that he cut his teeth, and I like that. I like the fact that he was in the trenches for quite some time, earning his skill, honing his skill to where he became, that. And that's what I found fascinating with this. I just see little inklings of Hitchcock, which come out definitely in Lady Vanishes. That film, I had never really even heard of it. I just knew it was early Hitchcock, and I'm so glad we watched that, because I watched that and I was just blown away. I was like, this is a great film. It goes from here, and suddenly where it ends up from where it starts is like
I'm surprised you'd never heard of it. I always felt like it was one of his more famous films.
And because I was more usually in the horror circles and that, so I knew more of his thrillers and horrors, not so much his suspense stuff, especially his earlier stuff. It was a blind spot, which is why every chance I get, I pick one of his earlier films, because I want to see, like you, Joe, I want to see these earlier films to see where you could see the early stuff,
Oh, definitely.
And it's always interesting to watch even the later Hitchcock when he's honed his craft and is the master that everybody knows him for, because you look at his stuff then and you go, oh, I see early Spielberg. Oh, I see early, Tarantino. Oh, I see like a dozen different filmmakers in like his bulk of work that everybody knows, like Rope and the, just all of North by Northwest, all of those thrillers. You look at those and you go, I see so many modern filmmakers in those movies. So to see where he came from is interesting.
I think at this point, the early 30s, probably the master of suspense is probably Fritz Lang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's just getting off of M, and so yeah, he's probably the the big suspense guy at this point, the big thriller guy, and von Sternberg in the U.S., I guess. Although
I could see that.
I'm not familiar with him.
Underworld, one of the early gangster movie, 1927 silent movie, just absolutely phenomenal. Some really great stuff.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, there's some really great early stuff, folks. This one maybe not so great, but again, interesting. So there you have it. We've got our Skin Game from 1931. Hope you found this interesting, as always. Alfred Hitchcock is definitely an interesting individual, filmmaker, to see the different types of films he's made over the course of his career. Good, bad, and slow.
I mean, a career that spanned 4 or 5 decades. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
4 or 5 decades with a lot of films in those decades. I mean, you get some, filmmakers who did 4 or 5 decades, but they only made maybe half a dozen films in each decade. And this guy, he was cranking.
Like every year, he made like it looks like 2 or 3 movies. So
he was definitely cranking it out. So. Yeah, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. And now, as always, I give a license to shill to my wonderful crew members, who I thank you for joining me in talking about this early film. So now, Kara, why don't you go first? You got anything you want to plug?
Let's see. I'm doing a live stream discussing Cocaine Bear this Saturday. So
Sorry, I have no qualms. I enjoy Cocaine Bear. I don't care.
It was fun. It's I mean, silly movie about a coked up bear based on true events. Um, I watched the documentary behind it. It made me wish that they had done a movie more true to it. That I think it would have been a lot more gritty.
It would have
But
been, yeah, shorter though. The
yeah,
bear
A
didn't
lot shorter, yeah.
the bear
but we
didn't
also
last
would
long.
have had coked up cows.
That's true. You would have cooked. Well, that's the sequel.
It-
We had Cocaine Bear. Now we'll have coked up cows.
Well, it's a movie that seems to have started like a little bit of a cottage industry of these things because you got Meth Gator, the Crackoon.
Raccoon.
Like, there's all these movies coming out now that it's like, okay, this has inspired something. And personally, the way I feel about Cocaine Bear, one, I'm glad that the Many Saints of Newark ended up not being Ray Liotta's final movie because
Oh god.
that would have been a sad end to a great career. At least Cocaine Bear and I mean Fool's Paradise seems to be getting just decimated by critics. So who knows? I still got to see that. But no, I really enjoyed Cocaine Bear too. So
It was fun.
and I like that you had a major studio realize finally again that you don't have to make a movie $500 million and then be like, oh my god, is it going to turn a profit? No, you made this for very little money. It made a ton of money. Keep doing that and keep putting out more projects that are not like gigantic, billion-dollar movies that we have to rely on everybody in the world seeing twice. Let's get back to making some moderate, modestly budgeted movies again.
That's why we're in another horror renaissance that we saw in the 80s. We're in that because they're cheap films that turn a profit. I mean, and it's no slam on horror movies. I love horror movies. We all do. But at the same time, they're cheap to make and they turn a profit. There's an audience out there.
Yeah, you don't have to spend a ton of money to make a good movie. You just have to know what you're doing, and you have to put the right people in the right place. And Cocaine Bear did that, thankfully.
Yeah, so that should
not just that, but I mean, like you can take a simple story, and it doesn't always have to be a bad B flick with horrible actors. I mean, you can actually put a good cast together, and I'm still shocked at the fact that Felicity was in this. I'm like, when are you going to cut your hair?
Never. So check that out, Horror Retrospective. Plus, you've got your other videos yet that you've done in the past, right, Cara? The reviews and retrospectives you've done on classic horrors.
Yeah, I've done classic stuff, and I've done a lot of bad B movies because I love watching bad movies. I don't call it self-punishment. I have a thing about watching bad movies.
Same here.
You're talking to the choir here.
Yeah. I also have 2 recent unboxings. One for Blackcraft Cult and Crystals.
I'm actually wearing Blackcraft Cult right now.
Yeah, I love them.
So wait, is it horror representative? What?
No, horror retrospective.
It's the same as my screen name, Horror Retrospective.
Horror Retrospective. Okay, I'm going to find you and subscribe. And
There you go.
There we go.
Awesome. So yeah, check out the live chats, especially with Cocaine Bear. That should be interesting. You should get a lot of interesting people.
Awesome. That'll be with I hope I don't mess up his name. It'll be with Hey Internet. It's Eric.
Oh, okay.
We're doing that together.
Cool. Well, that'll be a fun discussion. It's an interesting film, and I just saw a review about it from someone who just slammed the piss out of it, and I just looked at it and I read their review, and I go, yeah, I get it, but for me, I'm like, I was in heaven when I was watching Cocaine Bear. I'm like, I'm watching this on the big screen. I'm like,
This is what I'm talking about with the way some people review some of these movies.
Yeah.
What do you expect Cocaine Bear to be? like to be disappointed by it. What did you expect it was going to be? You know, like when Mark and I met at a film festival last year, I was like, I could say Casablanca is a 5-star movie, and I could say Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers is a 5-star movie. Because
It
Oh, I
is.
still haven't seen that one, but I love their
Oh.
tagline. They charge an arm and a leg.
Oh
it's
my God.
fantastic. I love Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers is a classic. I've got it on Blu-ray. My buddy got it. That was signed by the director.
Fred Olen Ray.
Yep, Fred Olen Ray. I've got the soundtrack on vinyl for Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. That film is so much fun. Oh my God. And better than you might expect it to be, in all honesty.
Yeah, because I mean, what do you like? That's the thing. What do you want these movies to be? That if you're slamming Cocaine Bear, like, what? Why?
One, the crazier the title, I mean, that's my opinion. The more fun it'll be.
You know, it's funny. I've had this discussion now because with Fast X out, I've seen so many people talk about, you know, oh, it's dumb and predictable and over the top and ridiculous. I'm like, that's exactly why the fans go see this.
Yeah, why were you going to see it?
If you look at where Fast and Furious started and what they tried to make this at first, like a serious kind of Point Break type of, you know, crime, like family, but the way those first 3 films are a bit more serious, and then after Tokyo Drift, you're like, you know, maybe we need to rethink this, and you get to 4, and then you get to the pinnacle, which is still 5. 5, if you look at the formula for 5, that's what they followed from then.
Those middle movies are the best ones.
Oh my God, there's so.
I'd probably have to go back and rewatch it. I saw the first one and I'm like, I hate this.
No, you've got to. When I saw the first one's not exactly my favorite to watch either, and 2 is a little bit better. 3 wasn't supposed to be a Fast and Furious film, and they shoehorned it in kind of. And then after that, though, if you can get past those first 3, oh my God.
Yeah. I 5 to 8, I think, are like the pinnacle of the series, and then 9
absolutely.
was just kind of ridiculous again, or it might have been 5 to 7, 5, 6, 7.
5, 6, 7 are probably the best in it, and don't try to follow the timeline because the timeline is all over the place.
Yeah,
I love how they bring back
physics mean nothing, death means nothing. Nothing means anything in these movies. So if you're gonna watch it, just turn your brain off, because
it sounds like y'all are talking about Friday the 13th.
The Friday the 13th timeline will be here for 8 hours if we try to figure that one out.
No, but yeah, because you have Tokyo Drift 1, 2, 3, and then 4 takes place before 3, and so does 5, and then 6, but then 7's after Tokyo. But then you also don't forget don't forget the one spin-off. You don't think the viewers, the fans, do not give a shit about the timeline continuity. You do not care. This is not why you watch the Fast and Furious films. And I think some people forget that this is not what the fandom wants. You want to watch crazy stunts that are over the top with vehicles. That's why you watch it. You're like, what are they going to come up with next? Is why you watch it. Story is secondary to the stunts. I mean,
exactly. If you want to watch Chinatown, you can go watch Chinatown.
Yeah.
And if you want to,
my sister, my daughter.
But if you want a really intricate, well thought out noir movie, go watch an intricate, well thought out noir movie. But don't go watch Cocaine Bear or The Fast and the Furious, expecting this intricate dark mystery. It's because you're not going to get it, and you should. It's on you at that point if you walk in there expecting to get that.
By the 10th film in this Fast and Furious series, if you're trying to look at it as a critical eye of just how good it is, don't
you shot a car into space.
That was 9.
Oh,
9. What's funny is before 9 came out, there were so many people going, well, they've done just about everything. They're going to go to space next. And a bunch of people were like, nah, they're not going to go to space. And then 9 came out, and sure as shit, they go to space.
Well, there's no more cities left for them to destroy on this planet. They might as well go destroy.
in makeshift spacesuits, no less. It's a
Oh, wow.
beautiful thing. I was like, this is beautiful. This is so beautiful. So yeah, so Fast and Furious Cocaine Bear. There you go. Check it out. Check out Cocaine Bear this weekend from the horror retrospective. Great stuff. There. Long story short, Joe, what do you got to plug?
I started a blog on Substack where I've been reviewing horror movies, noir, even stuff that's more recent. Like I did Evil Dead Rise. I haven't written one on Cocaine Bear yet, but I need to get around to that. I might have to rewatch it at this point. But I've covered stuff like as early as stuff from the 1930s, and as recent as Evil Dead Rise, and I'm just kind of doing whatever I want to with it. Like, I'm not really like I covered like a 1931 movie called Midnight Murder at Midnight. I'm like, nobody ever heard of it. It's got like 3 views, but other stuff that I've done has is doing really well, and I've got a couple of subscribers, a couple of paid subscribers. If you're listening to this, thank you. You don't have to pay to subscribe, though. You can just go to joerandazzo.substack.com. You can subscribe for free, and I don't. There's nothing on the pay version that's not going out to the free version. I guess it's just if you're kind enough to do it, I thank you. I'm also on the Literary License podcast, which we sadly lost out on the Rondo Award. Mick Garris beat us this time. And actually, Mark does come on sometimes. He came on a couple of times to do Batman, the animated series with us. Last week, we just did Infernal Affairs and The Departed. This week, we'll be doing Sinister and We Are Still Here. And we cover, as Keith, our leader, says, books to screen and everything in between. So check us out. That's the Literary License podcast. It's on every single, every single, every single media platform. So go check it out.
And in case you're looking for films.
You can. Yes, I was one of the writers on Cesar Renato's Deadly Xmas, which I think is on Tubi. I don't know.
It is. It was on Tubi.
It was on Tubi. You could definitely get the DVD as part of the Holiday Horrors collection. If you look up Amazon, Dave Campfield, who writes and directs these things, is phenomenal, and I was very happy to be a part of a couple of his films recently. Definitely check them out. He's got a new film coming out soon that having read the screenplay and now seeing the cast members who joined it, it looks like it's going to be phenomenal. I'll have to bug him on that when he's got it done. One of them is shocking because it's like, oh, okay, this guy just recently got nominated for an Emmy, so
there you go.
So yeah, it's he's a pretty big deal. I don't know if he's announced anything yet, so if you want to bug about that, feel free. But yeah, Substack joerandazzo.substack.com. Literary License Podcast is the other one, and yeah, thanks Mark for the plug. Check out Cesar Renato's Deadly Xmas. I think it's on Tubi. If not, I'm sure it's available somewhere. DVD, it's Holiday Horrors from Wild Eye Releasing. You can check it out there too.
There you go. See, my wall of movies is not just for show. Okay, I got movies that I can pull plugs.
I've run out of space. So I have stuff hanging off the end now, so I started buying media bags to throw stuff in.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Come to the closet.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in as far as my stuff. In case you're at all interested, well, you're here, so don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet to our podcast. We got some great stuff. I just did an interview last week with a very talented individual, Mr. Marcellus Cox, who did a great drama called Mickey Hardaway that's getting a lot of indie buzz. And yeah, he's actually working on the audio and such so it could get a limited theatrical release and distribution digitally. So he's working on that. So that was a very interesting and fun interview. I've got another interview coming up this week with the director of Mom and Dad's Nipple Factory. It's not what you think. It's a documentary about the work that his parents do out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin represent. And they make artificial nipples for women who have had mastectomies.
Oh,
And it's about their work as well as his family and a little bit of history, family history. Very interesting documentary. It went to some places I didn't think it would go, but I get to interview him, and that interview will drop this week as well. So, little teaser of stuff coming up if you're interested here at Special Mark Productions. Thank you so much, folks. And I will just say good evening.